Hello, and thank you so much for joining me today for another thought from the Bible. I wanted to open this video this week by sharing a few verses from the book of 2 Corinthians in the Bible. It came up in my daily Bible reading plan recently, and there were a few verses there that just spoke straight into my heart, and I wanted to share that encouragement with you today. So this is from 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verses 6 to 9, and it says, "For God, who said, 'Let there be light in the darkness,' has made this light shine in our hearts, so we could know the glory of God that is seen in the face of Jesus Christ." We now have this light shining in our hearts, but we ourselves are like fragile clay jars containing this great treasure. This makes it clear that our great power is from God, not from ourselves. We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. I love these verses. There is so much within them for us today, so much that is applicable to us. So I just love the way that it describes it, that picture it gives. There is light shining in our hearts this very day, allowing us to know the glory of God. And yet, we are nothing special. We are jars of clay. We didn't deserve it. We're not jars of some valuable, precious metal. We're jars of clay, of a cheap substance, something inexpensive, something easily broken. Jars of clay. And yet that is wonderful, because God has put the most immensely valuable gift within us, undeserving as we are. And it helps us to stay grounded, to remember that the all-surpassing power within us is nothing to do with us. It's not something that we've created. It's not something that we've achieved. It's not something that we've earned through our merits. It is all from God. What a wonderful reminder, though, that we do have access to that all-surpassing power. It is always with us. It is within us right now. This same chapter of the Bible, a few verses later on, says this: "Therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." In every single day of your life, there is a renewing work happening, and it is all down to that awesome and incredible and indescribable power that is within you, at work in you right now at this moment in time. You, a jar of clay, contain the greatest gift to humanity within you, thanks to Jesus Christ. And it's as we reflect that glory and that light and that power into this world that people may come to know more of who He is, may come to know Him personally for themselves as well. How wonderful that God would choose to use such flawed containers to hold the greatest power the world has ever known. And yet, despite having that power within us, we are hard pressed on every side, and we are perplexed. uncertain about what we should be doing and where we should be going and why the world seems to be in such a mess right now. And we are persecuted and we are struck down, knocked down. Why? If the light shines in our heart, if this great power within us is from God, then why? Why do we go through this suffering and this trouble and this mess? Why do we go through this pain and this confusion? Why do we face sickness? Why do we have days when it's all that we can do just to get out of bed because everything feels so heavy? Why do we as Christians still suffer with problems with our mental health? Why do we still face depression and anxiety and fear and things like that? Why do we have those issues if all-surpassing power is at our beck and call? I wish that I could answer all those questions, but I don't have all the answers. I'm often perplexed. You know, I love that Paul mentions that in this list, like we are hard pressed and we are persecuted and knocked down and we're also perplexed. But we are perplexed. We can feel confused. We can feel lost in this world, wondering why God allows things to happen, wondering how things can ever get better. We are perplexed, but we are not driven to despair. And that is what is different. That is where the light can shine all the brighter in this dark world that we are living in, because this is a world where hope is fading. This is a world where people are questioning. This is a world where despair is rising, because all that we hear about is war and disease and disaster and the absolute atrocities that humans conduct on one another, the absolute horror that humanity can bring about in this world. But we don't despair. We may not understand it, but we are not driven to despair by it, because we do have an all-surpassing power within us, because we can know the glory of God displayed in the face of Christ. We may feel hard-pressed, but we are not crushed. We are never crushed, because there is absolutely nothing that can overcome the power of God Almighty. And yes, we may face persecution, we may be hunted down, but we are never, ever, ever abandoned by God. He will never leave us or forsake us. Yes, we may be knocked down by what life brings to our door, but we are not destroyed. We cannot be destroyed, because nothing can destroy the all-surpassing power that lives within us. Sometimes, when we are in the thick of it, we can question that power, right? If there is such great power within me, then why am I suffering through that list of terrors and hardships? It can be easy in those moments of darkness to think that God's power is fallible, to think that it may have failed in our case. It can be easy to think that if God's power was absolute, that it should have protected us from those situations. It should have protected us from feeling hard-pressed and perplexed and persecuted and knocked down. But today I want to remind you that God's power has not faltered when we go through hard times. It is not diminished by your circumstances. His power sustains us through all of those things. It sustains us through every hard time, through every difficult day, through every question and doubt that rises in our hearts. I want to ask you a question today. If we as Christians never ever faced hard times, how would we reach those who do? If our lives were absolutely perfect and everything went well all of the time, at every moment, how would we reach the hurting with the light of God shining through our own pain? How could we talk about the God who has brought us through the darkness if we had never experienced that darkness? If we had never felt that pressure and confusion and mess and pain and persecution? You know, there's a lot that I don't understand, and that's okay. I am perplexed sometimes. But I trust in the God who has delivered me over and over and over again, who has sustained me in the midst of it all. I am absolutely astounded when I look back over my life and see how God has held me in the palm of his hand, has protected me, has carried me through the tough times. And you know what? I wouldn't change it. In the midst of those situations, yeah, I might have asked God to change things then. But right now, I would not change those experiences that I have had, no matter how hard and painful they may have been, because through them, I got to see God at work. And through them, he has developed me into the person that I am today. Yes, it's hard. But it's in the hard that we really recognize that all-surpassing power within these fragile jars of clay. If you are hard-pressed today, stand tall and know that you will not be crushed, because God is with you. Thank you so much for joining me for that thought from the Bible today. I'll be back on Wednesday next week with another video, another thought from the Bible. So I will see you then.